To all Iranian patriots, keep protesting, and all I say to them is help is on its way. One death is too much. I say save their names because they'll pay a very big price. And with our extremely successful operation in Venezuela earlier this month, that number soon is going to go lower because we're going to have a lot more energy. We're going to have a lot more, as opposed to a country that's going to be totally shut down. No fuel, no gasoline, and it's, they say it's got more than Saudi Arabia. Who knows? Got a lot. And by the way, to all Iranian patriots, keep protesting. Take over your institutions if possible and save the name of the killers and the abusers that are abusing you. You're being very badly abused. If the numbers are right now, I hear 5 different sets of numbers. I hear numbers. Look, one death is too much, but I hear much lower numbers and then I hear much higher numbers. But I say save their names because they'll pay a very big price. And I've canceled all meetings with the Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. And all I say to them is help is on its way. You saw that I put tariffs on anybody doing business with Iran. Just went into effect today. I say make Iran great again. It was a great country until these monsters came in and took it over. Make America great again. And that's what we're doing. We're making America great again like never before. And now, after less than 12 months in office, this is the easiest speech to make. I have great people, and all I'm doing is spewing off what the hell we've done. Even Venezuela wasn't too bad, was it, huh? But you have people, Democrats, they say, I don't know if we should have done Venezuela. I don't know. Anybody that says that hates our country, okay? That was as flawless an attack as there has ever been. And they asked us to help them. They have 50 million barrels of oil. They said, take it. It's $5 billion. And we did. We're working with the Venezuelan people and representatives, and it's amazing. But that was an amazing situation. But we did al-Baghdadi, flawless. We did Soleimani, flawless. We did the Iran nuclear attack where we wiped out their nuclear capacity, which would have been very bad. You wouldn't have peace in the Middle East, flawless. We did them all flawless. I want to keep it going that way, too. I like flawless. Think about Jimmy Carter, the great Jimmy Carter, with the helicopters crashing, the hostages all over the place. Remember that one? Think about Sleepy Joe Biden with Afghanistan. What a disaster. The most embarrassing day in the history of our country, in my opinion. Stagflation. How many times have you heard the word? We hit it with Joe. We hit everything. What a disaster. Meaning low growth and high inflation. How does that work? Not good. So you have lousy growth and high inflation. In fact, it's the lowest growth ever and the worst inflation in the history of our country. That is really tantamount to not having a good 4 years, right? In other words, Sleepy Joe and the people that ran the auto pen were a complete and total disaster for our nation. They were a disaster for our nation. Had they won the election less than 1 year ago, we would have been, as I've often said, Venezuela on steroids. Now I'm Venezuela's biggest fan. We're working with them, but they came down from a very high number to a disaster, a disaster. And we would have been Venezuela on steroids, and we're bringing Venezuela back, and we're going to be great for Venezuela, great for our country. We're taking in, as I said, there was the tariff that made America strong and powerful in past generations, and then we got off it and we went to the income tax system. Great going, fellas. We were the strongest in 1887, relatively speaking. That was around the McKinley time, Teddy Roosevelt and some others, but we were really strong. It was all tariffs. And I know what happened. Some of these countries got together and they say, hey, convince the United States that it's no good, the tariff system is unfair to us. And so some genius, I know who, I don't want to get into it, but some genius said, let's go to an income tax system. So instead of foreign companies and countries paying everything, the people started paying. And then after that, you had a depression, but that was a long time. That was in like 1913, you had the tariff switched into income tax. And then in and they like to blame tariffs. You ever notice they blame tariffs? No, they brought tariffs back in 1932. They brought them back to try and save the sucker. But it was in 1929, because a lot of people, the anti-tariff people. Now, an anti-tariff person is a pro-Chinese person, like Coke. This guy's fought me in every election I've ever been in, and I've kicked his ass. He inherited a lot of money. And I don't know the gentleman. But he fights me, and then he goes out and says, I made more money with Trump than I ever made in my life. And then he supports these other people that were total losers. Gives them a lot of money, but he made more money. Everybody makes money with me. I always made money for people. Now it's tariffs that are making money for Michigan, and the entire country is stronger and safer and richer than ever before outside of that period of time. Now, if they had what was called the Great Tariff Act of 1887 or something like that, and it was a great group of people like yourselves, they picked really smart people to sit on a committee. They had so much money, they didn't know what to do with it, and they wanted to have the money given away. You know, we built the Panama Canal out of tariffs. We did a lot of things. Panama Canal was the single biggest investment, relatively speaking, that this country's ever made. Would be the equivalent of trillions of dollars today. And Jimmy Carter gave it away for $1. Because now if they want to come in and build the plant and hire you and hire your friends and your neighbors, that's great. I love that. Let China come in, let Japan come in. They are. And they'll be building plants, but they're using our labor. U.S. auto factories are now seeing more than $70 billion of new investment. Think of that. They were leaving. They were all going. They were going in the opposite direction. Now they're pouring back. It's the greatest. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. And much of that money is coming right here to the car-making capital of the world, Detroit. You lost, so many places. Since I took office, Ford has announced it will invest $5 billion across its Michigan and Kentucky plants, creating 4,000 new jobs. GM is moving production of the Chevy Blazer and Equinox from Mexico right back here to America. Right? Is my favorite auto worker here by any chance? You know who I'm talking about. What happens? Where's Brian? Brian, oh, I see. He made some cash. He's have to fly. Oh, he's been very disloyal to Detroit. We're going to have to. He is such a great guy, right? Man, that guy fought for me when it wasn't the popular thing to do. He fought for me from day one. Well, you tell him I said hello to him, all right? That guy, he got it. 4 years ago, he got it, right at the beginning. He understood it better than anybody, better than the great economists. They had no clue. And Stellantis is investing $13 billion to expand its U.S.-based manufacturing plant by more than 50%. Stellantis doing a good job. Never before has an administration achieved such sweeping and dramatic turnarounds as have taken place just in this very short period of time. You're talking about 11 months. 11 months and you have a different business. 11 months and you're booming. I just spoke to an AI guy, and that's booming too. You know, we're leading China in AI by a lot. I'm letting them build their own electric plants because people are saying, the amount of electricity they need twice as much as electricity currently in the United States for every other business, home, factory. They need double. So I said, we can't do that. And then I had the idea. When they build these $50 billion plants, I'm going to let them build, and they're already building big electric plants to take care of their plant. And any excess electricity, they'll sell it back to our country. It's an unbelievable, and therefore we're going to build, I think if they really added, you hear how much, and I have great respect for China, but you hear they're building a lot of electricity, but we are too. But we're having it built privately. They're going to own their own electric. They're becoming their own electricity producer. And when they heard this idea, they thought it was great, but they didn't take it seriously because they said it's too good to be true. But then they realized that I was serious. They were getting them 2- and 3-week approvals. They don't have to wait for 20 years before they get rejected. In the old days, they had to wait for 20 years, and then they get rejected at the end of 20 years. Guys would give up their whole career trying to get one approval, and then they get rejected. In every aspect of our agenda, we're putting America first, and nothing will stand in our way. Nothing's going to stand in our way. Nothing. They have horrible policy. Thank God they have horrible policy because they're smart, they're evil, they're vicious, but they're bad policy. For instance, you could be a genius and try selling men playing in women's sport. You can be a genius, try selling transgender for everybody, open borders, let the world come in. Let the world's prison population come into the United States, including all of the murders, 11,888. That's what we're trying to get out of Chicago and Minnesota and these places. So they stick together, which I admire because I'm a very loyal person, but they have horrible policy. Can you imagine if they had good policy? They were on this morning talking all the reasons that men should be playing in women's sports. They had a football guy there, flag football. This guy was like 6'6". He weighed 290 pounds with zero body fat. And they had a few young women. They were the size of his leg. He wouldn't have had to run. He could have just walked. They couldn't have done a thing about it. 10 of them would have to jump on him. That wouldn't have had any impact. I don't think he would have been like a fly. It's so ridiculous. It's so demeaning to women. It's so demeaning. Look at the weightlifting records. I mean, the record got beaten by 112 pounds, a record that stood for 18 years. 1 ounce they'd put on stood for 18 years. Guy comes along who was a poor lifter as a man. He was at the lower portion of the class. Comes along and broke the record by 112 pounds. Think of that. They fought for years to beat that record. How about the swimming records? I mean, you can go to sleep during the time the man comes in and the woman. You can go take a nap for a little while. How about the long-distance race that took place not so long ago? Long distance, these marathon deals. They had top men, top women. The man came in. The woman came in 5 hours and 14 minutes and 36 seconds behind the man. Think of it. You're waiting. The man comes in. Now you're waiting 5 hours. What do you do if you're the parents? You go home and sleep for a while. Who the hell wants that? It's so demeaning to women and who are great athletes. It's so demeaning to them, and it's right now in the Supreme Court. I can't believe it would even go to the Supreme Court. I mean, could you imagine 20 years ago talking about men playing in women's sports? They'd think you're crazy. Or transgender for everybody? If you said there will be no mutilation on children, that's one of my standard lines. We will not allow the mutilation of a child. Can you imagine having to say that? 15 years ago, people would say, is that guy crazy? Of course we won't. But we're living in a different time. It's a crazy time we're living in. And with our extremely successful operation in Venezuela earlier this month, that number soon is going to go lower because we're going to have a lot more energy. We're going to have a lot more, as opposed to a country that's going to be totally shut down. No fuel, no gasoline. And it's, you know, they say it's got more than Saudi Arabia. Who knows? It's got a lot. And by the way, to all Iranian patriots, keep protesting, take over your institutions if possible, and save the name of the killers and the abusers that are abusing you. You're being very badly abused. If the numbers are right now, I hear 5 different sets of numbers. I hear numbers. Look, 1 death is too much. But I hear much lower numbers, and then I hear much higher numbers. But I say save their names because they'll pay a very big price. And I've canceled all meetings with the Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. And all I say to them is help is on its way. You saw that I put tariffs on anybody doing business with Iran. Just went into effect today. And I say make Iran great again. You know, it was a great country until these monsters came in and took it over.